Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. As a matter of fact, it's the brand new Rosa Stringworks workshop. We spent all last week and the weekend in a crunch to just get everything at least done enough that we could move in. We still got some doors to hang, we've got to put tools away, and lots of all the little stuff has to be put away yet. We've got all the big equipment moved in and everything kind of set up in place, but it's going to take a lot more work. I will be doing a shop tour before too long, but I'm going to wait until I get it all set up the way I want it, and then we'll go through and kind of introduce the whole new shop to you. But today is Monday, April 4th, 2016. And we are going to start on two brand new projects already. So these will be the very first two projects in the shop, and they're both really cool projects. The first one is more or less just a standard setup and a few repairs. But the cool thing about this one is who it belongs to. It belongs to Jeff Bradshaw out in Washington. And Jeff has a channel called the Redneck Restoration This Old Truck, and he sent along a couple of theft deterrent stickers. I'll give you kind of a close-up there so that you can see what he's got going on off of his channel. I'll put a link to his channel on the in the description. So if you like old trucks and like to see people work on them, and also like to see some occasional other things that he does some farm machinery and various and sundry other things that you do. And he does a good job with his videos. So check out Jeff's channel. Like I said, I'll put a link to it in the description. So his guitar, he sent me an email this morning that he's already going through withdrawals. So what it needs is a number of things. First of all, I'll use his theft deterrent sticker here that you can see that it goes under the corner up under here pretty good, about 1/4 of an inch or so. So the bridge is coming loose. There is a little bit of a bow to the top here, but that's not really that bad. I think once we take the bridge off, put it back on and clamp it down good, that'll probably be sufficient. It may not take out all the bow, but it'll help it. The biggest thing I see with it besides the bridge is the action here is crazy high. Fortunately, the saddle's really tall, so we should be able to get 90% of that out of there, or 95% of that out of there, with just lowering the saddle. The neck angle itself actually looks pretty good. It's about average on that, so that's not too bad. It's missing the truss rod cover. I noticed this morning that this tuning key here is completely loose. You can see it wiggling back and forth, so there's a screw missing out of there. We'll fix that. The neck has also got a crack in it right across here. I will see what I can do about that too. By the way, one of the cool things about this is Jeff is doing a video. When he gets this back, he's already done an intro video, and he showed that to me of the before, and then he's going to do a video of the after when he gets it back. And one of the parts of his video was talking about the changing the sound. Well, I got to be honest, I'm not sure that what I'm going to do to it is going to change the sound all that much, although I am going to put a deer antler saddle in here, and that'll help. But the cool thing is, anyway, you'll be able to check out the before and after video on Jeff's channel, and so that you can see the before and after effects of him playing it, and you know, you'll get his honest opinion and honest response of what happens when he gets the guitar back. So anyway, I want you to be sure to check all that out, and I'll put links as I find them in future videos so that you'll know what's going on. But we have another project that is going to be really cool also. And this project, I haven't even opened it yet. It came in last Friday while we were in the middle of the moving into the new shop. And I'm going to get the box right now. We're going to open it up. This project came from Oxford, Mississippi. And as you can see, it's still in the box. The box looks to be in good shape, so I didn't even bother opening it when it got here because I was in the middle of my move. Like I said, I promise you this one's quite different project. And you're thinking right off, well, okay, it's a mandolin. We can see that it's a Kentucky mandolin. Looks like normal. Whoops. There's your problem right there, Vern. You can see that this thing is missing a little bit. It don't have a top. Well, obviously we're going to have to make a new top. Fortunately, it looks like he sent along some wood. And it looks to be okay wood. First impression, it's maybe a little different than I would have picked out if I was picking it out, but it looks like it'd be all right. It looks like it's glued together pretty well. Looks like the joint, looks like he tried to start carving just a little bit here in the back and got a little frustrated with it. It's a little extra thick. It's a little extra thick. We're going to have to take it down and see what we've got. But I believe we can work with that. So, this project, like I said, is quite different than the average project. And it's kind of cool that it'll be one of the first two projects done in the new shop. Well, all I've done so far on the Jeff Bradshaw Redneck Restorations guitar is just take off the strings. But literally just taking off the strings, that fell off. So it definitely was very loose. And here's the screw. So we will fix that the first thing. That'll be the first thing we fix. And as I figured, the holes are wallered out. The screws just slide down in there. So therefore we will have to find another matching screw because one screw's missing. And we will have to fill these holes and put this back together. I'm noticing that tuning key, I didn't look at it any closer, but it's really loose compared to some of the others. This one's a little loose. Most of the rest of them are fairly tight. This one's a little loose. But that one's really loose. So I'm going to take it back out of there again. My guess is, yep, that's loose too. So this screw here is loose also. You should be able to tighten those down pretty tight and they still should function fine. It's funny how it gets tight in one place here. It's like the gears are out of round or something. It's almost like that one's been replaced, like it don't match. It don't actually seem to match. That may be why they had it so loose. Well, now I'm going to take another one off to look at it to see if it just doesn't match. This one here turns fine, so let's see if the gears are different. Look and see if the gears are different or if they're the same. You can see where this one's a lot more worn when you look at it really close than this one is. There's something not quite right about that gear. I'm going to take this gear off and switch it with the other one and see if they work differently from one to the other, because it sure isn't working right. maybe I just figured it out. This plate is bent. This plate is bent down. It's subtle, but it's bent. You can probably see it better on this side. See how the plate itself is actually bent. That might be the problem, because this one's perfectly flat. This one's perfectly flat, this one's bent. So let me straighten that out first, and then we'll try it again. Okay, I've got that plate straightened back up and got it really good and flat. Now we'll put it back together and see if that makes any difference. Oh yeah, yeah, that fixed it. Now it's turned smooth as it can turn. That was very strange. I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't work, but now it turns perfect. Turns absolutely perfect now. Okay, well, we made a nice positive result there. So let's put her back together. I think we're good. Okay, now they feel good. A tiny bit of play in them, but not much. Now that they feel good, they're all nice and smooth. They all turn nice and easy, nice and smooth. So that's one improvement we've made to it for sure. Okay, now in an effort to adjust the action so that we can get it as low as possible, I'm going to level all the frets. Just rubbing it across there that little bit, I can see that there's high spots in it. Feels good, can't hardly feel them at all now. Now we'll recrown the frets, although they're not bad as they are, but we'll recrown them just a little bit with this file. Won't take much. That looks good. Now we'll polish them up just a little bit with some fine sandpaper. Got a piece of about 600 grit here, and we will just lightly go over them to get rid of any of the file marks, and this will shine them up, make them look like brand new. That looks good. That really makes them look nice. And now that we've got it leveled and polished, we will now level. Well, looky here. I literally just touched that and the nut broke in half. So we will fix that too. We will put a new deer antler nut on there. Okay, now that we have the fretboard perfectly level and all cleaned up, we'll put some oil on it. Much better. It really looks better. I've noticed that the saddle is broken also. We're gonna more or less throw that away, and we'll make a new one. make it out of deer antler also. And now I'll dry the fretboard off, get rid of the excess oil. And in a few minutes I'll wipe them back off again to get rid of any excess that bleeds back out. It's time to take the bridge off and see about gluing it back the right way. It's really not very loose. I toyed with the idea of just gluing it in place, but I thought, you know, with the bow there in the top, it'd probably be better just to go ahead and take it off and put it back on. Right off, good deal. And probably came off cleaner than almost any bridge I've ever taken off. It really came off clean, which just is a good indication of why the glue wasn't sticking. You can see that they just basically squirted glue on here, never spread it out. There's no glue out on the edges. There's no glue around the back edge. It's amazing how they do this. It literally has just been squirted on there. You can see it better on the top, I think. You can just see how they just squirted glue around and they never actually spread it. Well, we'll fix that problem. It'll never come loose again. First, we're going to scrape what little glue is on the bridge off. Just have a straight edge razor blade. Since this one's pretty clean, that's going to probably work the best. Really clean. I don't think we'll have any problem with that. I'll use a little finger plane blade to scrape off the glue up here. I just noticed something. As soon as I started scraping, I thought that felt weird. They didn't even bother to take the finish off. I know it looks different color, but that's just fading. They glued the bridge right on top of the old finish, and they didn't bother to take it off at all. No wonder it came off so easy and so clean. Okay. Well, that means we're going to have to score around this and get rid of all the old finish. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is take this very sharp X-Acto knife and I'm going to scratch the finish all the way around the bridge. I'm going to take my time so that I don't get outside the bridge. Okay, I believe I've got it scored all the way to the wood, and now it's going to be a fun job getting all of that finish off, but it all needs to come off so that it can be glued where it will never come loose again. Very tedious job, but a job that has to be done. All this finish has to come off of here. Give you a little bit of a close-up now so you can see the difference in what's coming off. And pretty clear, you can see how the finish is off in this area here. It's still on in all this other area. When you can go so far, and then you kind of have to turn and go a different direction just to play it safe so that you don't get out and scratch the top of the guitar. It's so easy to push these things I mean, you're pushing pretty hard. It probably doesn't look like I'm pushing that hard on the video, but I'm actually pushing pretty hard to get that finish to break. And anyway, you know, I do this so often, I probably should make me a holder for this. In fact, I think I'm going to. Well, I did just that. I went and made me a holder for this thing. It looks pretty clumsy, but it's actually pretty cool. It works really good. I beveled off this back edge in the same plane as the blade so that it won't ever be close to the instrument. And it's round. Got a little knurled edge there that I don't really need. That was just on there already on this piece of scrap. But that gives me a little bit of a grip. It's just the right size to get a good firm grip on it. I've practiced with it just a little bit here off camera, and it works nice. Now you could say, well, why don't you just use a chisel? Well, a chisel ain't got a rounded bottom and a rounded corners like this. This thing works the best for me. I'm used to using it, and it works good. I can control it. And now with this handle, I can control it even better, and it's less stress on my fingers. So much faster, so easy and clean. I like it a lot. There we have it. Nice and clean. Don't know what that extra hole's there for. Guess they just felt like they needed it. Okay, now that we got both of them completely clean, we'll put the glue on here and get her going. All right, we'll call that a real good glue job, and that bridge ought to stay on there forever. Okay, the neck joint is really tight, this crack, but I do see it move when I put stress on the neck. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint water around it like so. And what that does is that water has that capillary action, and it will suck back in there. Will it go back in as far as it needs to go? Well, I can't really say that for a black and white fact, but it will go back in there better than the glue will. So if you get the water in there first, and you know, just kind of wiggle it back and forth, and I can see the water squeezing out of there now as I wiggle it back and forth. So that means there's water back in there. Then the glue will ride that water down in the crack. You can see I cleaned it up, but as soon as I squeeze it, you can see all the glue running out. So there's quite a bit of glue down in there. And that's just squeezing it by hand. Now I'll get me a clamp and put on there. We'll let it set for 24 hours. Okay, I've got a piece of leather under here so that this won't touch the guitar. I've got leather here and leather on the fretboard, and I cranked her down. You can see a lot of squeeze out, so there's quite a bit of glue down in there, so that makes me feel pretty good about it. And as long as the guitar's not dropped again, I don't think it'll come loose. If it would ever get knocked over or something like that, well then yeah, sure, it might pop it. But I'm pretty sure it's a pretty strong joint like that. If I could get a clamp right there, I would do it. It would help. I don't know if I could get anything to clamp there. I can squeeze it with my fingers, but I don't know that I could get a clamp to hold right there. Okay, we're going handheld. You can see there's more glue squeeze out there. I turned it upside down and I put weight on it. I had an extra can of paint that I'm going to return from painting the shop here. And I put some pads there, of course, so it won't scratch the guitar. And you can see how it's squeezed out just a little bit more glue. So we'll wipe that up. There's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say, and so I couldn't get a clamp on there, but by doing it that way, that does the same thing. Well, it's day 2 with the Redneck Restoration guitar, and we've got the clamps on it still. It's clamped overnight, so let's go ahead and remove those. We'll take the clamp off of this neck joint first. Alright, we've got the clamps off of it. It looks to be glued really well to the top. And might have even improved the top bulge just a hair, which is good. And anyway, we're about ready to start making the saddle and the new nut so that we can string this baby up. I have the broken saddle here, and just measuring it with my calipers, it shows that it's about 105 thousandths. I'm going to make the new one about 110 thousandths. I have a piece of deer antler that's just been sliced off the edge, and I'm about ready to make the saddle for the guitar. Okay, we've got a pretty good sized flat on there, and I don't think it's quite large enough yet to make a straight line across there for the saddle, but pretty close, so we'll take just a little more off. I think we might be able to work with that, so we'll see what we've got. Okay, the piece is just almost big enough to get us straight out of there. I'm going to take another 10 thousandths or so off the top of here, and that should help it a little bit. Yeah, that's close enough for at least getting me going here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece out of this. I'll trace around it and then cut a piece out of this so that it's a little less sanding. So we'll cut that out on the bandsaw and we'll come back here. We've, in measuring this, we're at 190 thousandths. We only need to be 104 thousandths, so we're, way thick. I'm actually going to make it probably 110 thousandths to start with, but we're still way thick. So I'm going to take a little bit more off this top edge to fill in the little low places here. That'll fill those in. Okay, there. Well, I actually overshot what I was shooting for a little bit. Not bad though. It's 108 thousandths, so that ought to be more than tight enough in the slot. So the rest of it we're going to take off the front side to fill in this last little bit of holes, and we'll go test this. We'll go test fit it now just to see if it does fit into the slot. It actually does start into the slot, but it's just a hair tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take what they call a spring pass, and I'm not going to change the height. Probably going to take a couple of spring passes. That ought to make it fit real good. Let's see what we are now. Well, we're right back to the 104 thousandths. So I test fit it again in the guitar slot. It still feels pretty darn snug to me, so I think it's just about right. Now we're going to work on the ends and just round it off a little bit. All right, we've got one end set. And just looking at it by eye, right about in here would be about the length that I want. and so I'll be a little generous with that and leave a little bit extra, but we'll round it off until we get that mark to that mark there. I'm going to check the fit on that to see if it will fit in there. It's still quite long, so we'll take it down just a little bit more. Okay, we got the bottom nice and flat. Now we'll set the angle on here and profile the top. I have the angle set to about 25 degrees. It's not all that terribly critical. Okay, that looks like a decent shape right there. We'll start with that. It's probably still quite high, but we'll work with that and see where we go. I'm going to cut out a rough blank out of the same piece of deer antler, by the way. For this nut. This is just one of the fragments left over, and if I measure the thickness, it's just real close to 250 thousandths. It actually measures under that. So we'll work on a piece that's a little bigger than that and get one about the right length, and then we'll start doing the thickness sanding on it. We've got a roughed out blank here of this out of the same piece of deer antler, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this through on this top side here just to flatten it off a little bit. I've already got the back side relatively flat, and you know, we're way thick right now. We're like at 340 and we only need to be like 250. So we're going to take a little bit off the top here, and then we'll take most of the rest of it off the back to get rid of most of that porous material. On the money. I glued the old nut back together just temporarily so that I could use it as a pattern. On the nut, this natural curve of the antler can be used to form this curve right here, and that also brings me up into more solid material. So I'm actually going to bring it up a little bit higher than I would ordinarily on this one and trace around it. And now we'll cut that rough shape out on the bandsaw here. Once again, I have the table for the disc sander set at about 25 degrees. It could probably be a little bit steeper than that on this one, and I think I will. I'll probably go to about 30. And then we'll rough out the rough shape. It's getting pretty close now. There's a lot that's that can be rounded off now because it's normally not angular corners like it is here. If you look at the end profile, it's kind of rounded, so it's not very far off of where it should be. But it's a little large this way, I'm sure, so we've got room to work with this yet, and we'll take it over and do a test fit. Well, as I suspected, we're quite high, so I'm going to take a little bit more off of that angle, and then I'll take a little bit off the bottom. Well, that's looking pretty darn good. I think I can work with that now, and I'll go ahead and test it for length, and we'll cut the length off of the side here that's got the most porosity, and that'll also help the angle there too. Alright, you can probably see the mark I made for the length. This side's almost right. I'm just going to touch this side just a little bit. I believe that's going to be a pretty close fit now, so we'll go back to the bench and do the rest of it hand fitting from there. Okay, I've test fitted it here. The length is still just a fraction long. The height is probably close to right, although it's still high. And I'm going to now just take and hand round off these corners to make it look good. Now I'm test fitting it here and moving my fingers on it, and I can't feel it, so it's perfect. I've already cleaned this joint out right here, so I'm just going to take a drop of super glue in a couple of places here and put this in place, hold it with my fingers till I get it just right. I told Jeff that I would make a truss rod cover for his guitar, and I told him I would make it out of black-white plastic, but unfortunately, with the move and everything, I cannot find that, and I'm not even sure I had another piece of it left, but I thought I did. But anyway, I cannot find it, so I've got a piece of real ebony wood here, and I'm just going to make it out of ebony wood, and we're just going to have to make that work. I've roughed out the piece of ebony that will cover up the holes. I made a paper template so that I know where to drill the holes for the screws. We'll sand it a little bit. Try to get it really smooth. That looks pretty smooth. I think I'm going to put a coat of quick drying shellac over it first because that will seal the grain, and then I can spray it with some lacquer. We're just about ready to start putting the strings back on this thing, and I have a 5mm drill here, and we're going to open up the holes again. Okay, that drill matched the holes pretty precisely, so it should work out just fine. Okay, before we start the stringing process, I wanted to double check this depth of this saddle, and so I drew a little pencil line right at the edge there so I could see how deep it was going down in there, and I've checked, and it is going all the way to the bottom of the saddle slot. We're right ready to start stringing it up. The ends of these pins are real blunt. I like to see them beveled back from the groove a little bit. And so it doesn't take much, just a little file like that, and that'll dress them off, and that way they don't catch on the end of the button too bad. They'll wedge it in there, which is what it's supposed to be. They're not supposed to be on the end of the pin because that pulls the pin out. Well, I'm pretty satisfied with that fit now compared to where we were. So we'll go with that. Okay, making this new nut, I kind of line it up by eye, decide where I think it should be, then I mark it with a pencil, and then I saw it out. I get the outside two set, and then I set the others from those. There's been so many interruptions in the shop here. My son's building a new Well, he just bought the farm in front of me, and he keeps running in and out with equipment and stuff. So anyway, bottom line is I have to keep turning the camera off. I've got this one marked about where I think it should go. I might actually move it that way just a little bit. I'm marking this string where I think it should go. And I'm only real shallow right now, so there's plenty of room to adjust it. I like to start off like that first because, I mean, I could use the old nut to mark it and all that, but I just like to look down the fretboard and make sure they look good and even. And then I just take a string deal like this and I mark the top of like that string and this string, and I check these two and see if they're about the same. Check these two, they look good. These two are a little further apart. These two are about right. So I'm a hair farther apart than I should be on everything. So it's just trial and error, but once I get it, it's a very accurate way to do it, really. Once we get this somewhat close, and I'm only talking relatively close, then we'll move back to the saddle and lower it down, and then we'll do the final adjustment up here. Okay, that's close enough for this end for the moment. It's still way high, but it's not crazy high. We need to turn our attention to the saddle end and get it roughly where we want it before we lower that the rest of the way. We know we're plenty high. I would like to see this down to somewhere closer to 90 thousandths. And so we're going to have to take off quite a bit back here. If I get the strings loose enough, I might be able to pull this saddle out without even taking the strings off. Okay, got the saddle out without having to take the strings off. Being that that's 190 thousandths, and I'd like to see it closer to a 90 thousandths. Okay, I've taken off quite a bit here. Took it off almost to the depth that it was, at least on the ends, into the bridge. I know I'm going to need to take off more. I'll check the two E strings real quick. I just want to, it's easier to take off more than it is to add, so I just want to check it, carefully. Take off quite a bit more here. It's looking a lot better. I have a feeling this is going to be pretty close. Okay, it's just a hair over the 108 now. Alright, so we'll call it 110. If I want to get it to 90, I'd have to 110, 90, that would be 20 thousandths. I'd have to take off 40 thousandths more. And that seems reasonable. Okay, what I did was I set the calipers to 40 thousandths of an inch. And in case you want to know what that looks like, that's what it looks like. It's about that big right there. And I grooved it along here, and that pencil mark that's left, the pencil mark that's left that you can maybe see, is almost exactly how much I need to take off. So just as soon as I touch that pencil mark, I'm going to stop. All right, I've taken off quite a bit more there. I took off probably about 40 thousandths. And I'm checking it here, and now that's just snug. And that's 108 thousandths, which is a little bit high. It's also about 108 thousandths on that. So we're still about 18 thousandths more than I would like. I would take 15 thousandths. So I'm going to go another 30 thousandths right here. Well, if you're going by measurements, this should theoretically be just right. I'm not going to change it anymore at the saddle end because I've got to take down quite a bit more at the nut end. That's going to affect this a little bit. It's not going to affect it a lot, but it will affect it some. And so I've got to take down some at the nut, and we'll see how it goes. I have a pick here which is 18 thousandths thick, and we've got to go a little ways yet. That's it. I'm going to call that good right there. Now we can see that the next one is quite high compared to that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's really nice, low action. I don't think he could complain about that. Now let's, with a little bit of string tension on there, let's just check back here at the 12th fret. All right, at the 12th fret now, it's lifting the string. So we're probably real close to 100 thousandths right there, which isn't terrible. But I think we can do quite a bit better on this one, the way it looks. I'm going to look down the guitar now that it's got a little bit of tension on it to see what the truss rod looks like. The truss rod's got a little bit of a bow to it. I believe we'd be doing well to tighten the truss rod just a little bit. I've got all the strings loosened up, and I'm going to just check to see if this truss rod can be tightened a little bit. Looks like it can be. It's snug, but we're going to just turn it a little bit, just enough to take that extra underbow out of there. It doesn't need much underbow, just a little bit. We'll go ahead and get her all tuned up now and just see where she stands. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to knock the rest of this off because this is quite high right here. That looks pretty good there. Now we'll take the strings off, and I'll round this a little bit more and knock off the sharp corners and things like that. Now that the strings are off, I can take this file and round the front of this nut off. It's time to tune this baby up. Got the tuner here in hand. pretty well. I like the action. The action's good. It's nice and low. The one thing I'm not crazy about at the moment is because we've got the saddle so much lower now, the angle from the peg to the saddle is pretty flat. I would like to, I'm exaggerating, but I'd like to see it at a little more of an angle, something like this. So I'm going to take all these pegs out, take all the strings off, and I'm actually going to take the Dremel tool and cut a little bit of a slot at an angle down into the peg hole so that these strings can come down a little bit like this. I have this little burr cutter on the Dremel tool, and it's small, and then I'm going to just get in here and more or less just cut a little bit of a slot between each peg, and that'll give the string an angle to pull down tighter on the saddle. Well, that's all there is to it. That groove is not all the way through the bridge by any stretch. It's just kind of a 45-degree angle from below the saddle down into the peg hole. It only goes maybe halfway through the bridge. Just so if you have any idea of doing that on your own. Okay, the bridge is a little scratched up and scarred up. I think I'm going to clean that up a little bit and then oil it one more time. We'll let that set a couple of minutes and then we'll take that right back off. Before I put the strings on it, Jeff had requested that I put some sort of marking on it that showed that I had worked on this guitar. He had even suggested that I sign it on the top or back or someplace and spray lacquer over that, but I'd rather not do that. I do have labels that I put inside the instruments that I build, and so I think I'll just put a label in there and show that it was repaired on this date. Well, as I mentioned, Jeff asked me to put my signature on the guitar somewhere, and I have my label, if it will focus on it. It's Rosa String Works. It's got the date of April 5th, 2016. And I said repaired, where I would normally put my serial number. And I signed it, Jerry L. Rosa Sr. Now, the problem with putting this label in there, Jeff, is that you've basically got maybe a $500 to $700 guitar here, something like that. The moment I put this label inside here, it just becomes a $100 garage sale item. I'm sorry, I hate to tell you that, but just the way it is. Well, there it is. It's in place. Okay, let's tune this little baby up and see where she's at. Looking down the neck, there is just a tiny bit of underbow, which it should be. That looks okay to me. that she's all set up here and everything, I just want to check the setup one more time. Okay. It's still just a little higher than I want right here. I could take the saddle down just a little bit more. The E string's a little bit high right here. I'm going to take it down just a teeny bit more. The action is just ever so slightly high here, so as much as I hate to do it, I think I'm going to loosen the strings one more time, pull this thing out one more time, take maybe another 20 thousandths off of it. That ought to lower it a little bit more here. Okay, I think that's going to be our final adjustment. Hopefully that's the final adjustment. Let's get her tuned up one more time. We've got the guitar all tuned up and everything's working good. I checked the intonation and it's off. It's off quite a bit. The large E is off +10. This is off +10. That's the A. The D is off +8. The G is right on the money. The B is +10 and the E is +8. So what I'm going to do is take the saddle back out and I'm going to try to move the strings back that way. I'm going to move the contact back that direction so that it will lengthen the string just that much and hopefully get rid of it. I probably can't get rid of all of that +10, but I can make it much closer. Maybe we can get it down to a 5 or something like that. I marked on the saddle where the G is, and that's the G center's in that space there. So I'm going to take everything back except for that G, and we'll see what we can do with that. Saddle's getting kind of small, so there's not much room to file on it actually, so just going to have to hold it. That should make an improvement. I don't know if you'll be able to see the contours in there, but basically this would be the front of the bridge, and the G is the only one that's still out proud. The rest of them are pulled back. Check the intonation now, and it's almost perfect. The B is still a little bit sharp, but it's not bad. It's only about 6 or 7 sharp now compared to where it was 10. The rest of them, this was off the most. It's off by maybe 2 or 3 now, which is pretty good. It's off. This is off 2 or 3. This is almost perfect. This is almost perfect. Almost perfect. This one's off about 6 or 7, and this one's off about 1 or 2. way better than 10 because it was almost everything was off 10 and 8, so it's way better than it was. Even the B's better than it was, it's just not as good as I wish it was. Pretty darn good, pretty darn good. He ought to be pretty happy with that, I think. Seems really nice. Don't think you could ask for much more. I believe it's in pretty good shape. So just as a recap, we repaired one of the tuning keys up here that was bent, and that's why it wouldn't turn correctly. And some of the screw holes were wallered out, so we fixed that. We fixed a new truss rod cover here. We adjusted the truss rod just slightly. New nut made out of deer antler. We leveled all the frets. We leveled in between all the frets. We oiled the fretboard. We recrowned the frets and polished the frets a little bit. We made a new deer antler saddle to fit. We adjusted the action to get it as low as we can really get it for this particular guitar. We worked on the holes here, cutting the angle down so that the strings pull down on this saddle pretty good. And of course we removed and replaced the bridge, getting rid of all the finish that was under that bridge. So I believe that recaps everything we did. I guess I said we fixed this neck, the joint here where the neck broke. I put my label inside of it. So for Rosa String Works, here's a conclusion to this. Jeff Bradshaw up there at the elderlyiron.com, the Redneck Restorations, This Old Truck up in Selma, Oregon. This guitar will be coming back to you tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. And hope you enjoy it. And for those of you watching, Jeff is going to do a video. He's got a video already made up of the before, and now he'll have one for the after, and you'll be able to see that on his channel. I'll put a link to his channel there. And once I know he's got those posted, I'll put a video out to tell you about that too, so that you can go out there and see his videos. Hope you enjoyed this little repair build situation, and it's a pretty nice little guitar now. I believe it's solid for a long time to come. Thank you for watching.